Lima is the second driest city in the world, with a dominant discourse of water scarcity justifying exploration for new water sources. Construction of mega infrastructure projects such as desalination plants and water transfer schemes is prioritised, despite water wastage in a deteriorating network. However, it is uneven distribution rather than scarcity which is the greatest impact on water availability. While around 1.5 million people, mostly in the periphery, do not have access to network water and sanitation provision and rely on small-scale private water trucks, people in the city centre of Lima consume over 500 litres of water per day. Behind these different realities, socio-environmental injustices are being reproduced and everyday risks are accumulated simultaneously. In the periphery of Lima, we identified 4 risk traps stemming from a lack of water and sanitation access, predominantly affecting the marginalised and poor. An infrastructure trap occurs as reverse urbanisation processes without infrastructure force reliance on needs-driven practices. Rapid urban expansion and land trafficking exacerbate the situation, meaning construction is forever playing catch-up. The resulting fragmented water provision can impact on the potential for future networked infrastructure connection. The reproduction of a poverty trap occurs as those already in poverty and without land tenure struggle to access formal networks. This forces people to rely on poor quality water from expensive private and informal vendors, which can charge up to 5 times the net worth. This increases the percentage of income spent on water, lowers the capacity to escape poverty, and perpetuates already unequal access. Poor quality and insufficient quantities of water produce a hygiene trap, where vulnerability to waterborne diseases such as cholera and typhoid is increased. The reliance on pit latrines also significantly increases the risk of infection and illnesses. This can lead to livelihood losses, reducing people's financial capacity and impacting the poverty risk trap. Women often bear a much larger burden when it comes to the water and sanitation, creating a gender inequality. For example, women are usually responsible for collecting the water from private vendors. Climate change is adding to the water and sanitation challenges in the city. The recent El Niño caused severe flooding, leaving Lima without water access for 10 days. These events are becoming more frequent and will further increase the vulnerability of everyone in the city of water stresses, regardless of socio-economic status. Therefore, transformative change is desperately needed to disrupt the accumulation of risk traps and ensure environmental justice. We define transformative change as challenging the status quo of supply and provision through processes of incremental change. This utilizes existing resources to maximize capacity and efficiency and is innovative, socially and technically. The processes of transformative change has to occur at different scales, both temporal and spatial, and needs engagement from multiple actors including communities and policymakers to ensure holistic impact. The outcomes must be sustained over time and improve the quality of life for all citizens and the environment, which are intricately interrelated. Transformative change needs to achieve universal connection through an inclusive and democratic process. Therefore, we analyse the water and sanitation situation in Lima using the environmental justice framework concerning distribution, recognition, and participation. Complementing the commitment by Lima's water governance institutions, including the Ministry of Housing, Construction and Sanitation, the municipality, SEDAPAL and SUNAS to ensure 100% access, the discourse of water as a human right is currently going through the Peruvian Congress. However, the human right to water is only seen as an economic right for those who can afford it, but all citizens should be recognised, especially the low-income peripheral communities facing everyday risk traps. Moreover, recognition of the environment and ecological infrastructure is essential. Procedural environmental justice is required in order to uphold the populations, specifically the periphery's, rights to be informed and to participate in the decision-making process. Transparency ensures accountability and prevents actions breaching environmental laws. Based on this, we formulated 3 main research objectives. Firstly, to investigate to what degree our projects are transformative, identifying the present elements of transformative change. Secondly, to understand the conditions under which they can bring transformative change. Finally, to understand how to integrate them into the wider framework for water and sanitation provision in Lima as part of a holistic vision for the future. Our field work included semi-structured interviews with a range of actors, community focus groups, transit walks, and actor workshops, all of which were supplemented by academic sources and institutional documents.
Our first key finding was regarding the schemas. Based on initial research in London, we understood the schemas as a community coping strategy to lobby SEDAPAL for water and sanitation access. However, our fieldwork revealed that schemas are actually SEDAPAL's long-term strategy to tackle maldistribution and achieve 100% access, which formally recognises the diverse water and sanitation needs of the marginalised. The Lima periphery is divided into subsections, with different schema numbers assigned to each area. The management process and financing of the different schemas involve various actors, including municipalities and international actors such as the Inter-American Development Bank. Community elected committees also work with CEDAPAL to create community plans and provide housing ownership certificates. Once an schema has been certified, construction of the pipe network is carried out, bringing regulated water and sanitation provision to the periphery. This removes the reliance on provision from overpriced, poor-quality water from private trucks, the collection burden of which commonly falls on women, contributing to a reduction in all four of the peripheral risk traps. However, there are weaknesses in the schema's vision. There's a big disparity in the timeframe for completion between schemas, as they get prioritised based on factors such as closeness to the natural water source and the central piped network. This is privileging northern areas and leaving behind those in the south, which won't be completed for up to 10 years. This is affecting the ability to ensure just distribution to all. Such disparity is based on the perception of scarcity and that a new water source is needed for southern schemas. This is emerging under a growing water as a business mandate and privatisation trends within CEDAPAL. However, an increasing focus on large-scale private solutions is actually raising costs and hindering water provision. As a result, risks and water scarcity are being simultaneously reproduced, and this is causing a twofold misrecognition of the environment in terms of the damage done to the environment through large projects and overlooking the potential of local ecological infrastructure as playing a vital role in water provision.
Está por $2 por metro cúbico, que es caro. Entonces CEDAPAL no le puede cobrar los $2 a todo lo de Comas, a todo lo de Caraballo, porque si no hay un conflicto social.
Within schemas, 100% provision of services is not guaranteed. In Villa Lourdes Ecologico, around 80 new houses won't get access to sewage due to their upslope location, and in Trosica, residents who moved in after 2014 won't be getting water access through forthcoming works. This demonstrates a lack of forward planning in schemas to account for urban expansion, and hence a temporal misrecognition of future residents moving into the periphery. As a result, decentralised alternatives are emerging in the periphery to fill provision gaps in the short to medium term. We focused on two innovative projects aiming to challenge the status quo of water and sanitation provision whilst disrupting the peripheral risk traps. Fog catchers have been used in many contexts around the world to bring additional free water to communities by catching it using fog nets. In Lima, NGO Paranas Sin Agua have introduced them into the Lomas, such as in Villa Lourdes Ecologico, where each net can catch up to 400 litres of water a day. The majority of project beneficiaries are the low-income households living in high-risk areas of the Lomas, who rely on water trucks for drinking and non-drinking water. A free source of water reduces money spent on non-drinking water for these families, and in many cases enables their agriculture-based livelihoods as the water is used for cultivation, addressing the poverty trap. However, the potential of this highly innovative project is limited. Whilst in other contexts, such as parts of Chile, the water can be used for drinking, in Lima, air pollution currently prevents use for human consumption due to the presence of heavy metals. Seasonality of fog also means that the nets can only be used in the winter between June and November. In summer months, communities have to revert back to the water vendors. Large water reservoirs are needed to maximise the storage of water from the fog catchers for use all year round, which requires capital and extra space. However, with these reservoirs, there is potential for providing potable water all year round, especially if filtration is integrated. To explore this potential on a wider scale, we overlaid the current fog catchers' locations and prospective locations with the planned schemas, and saw a clear overlap between the FogNet's potential and the areas which won't get a schema connection in the near future. This means that synergy between the two projects could bring new water supply to areas unserved by the schemas and provide water in the short to medium term. Fog catchers can also be used to re-establish and protect the Lomas through reforestation, thereby diminishing future risks of flooding and landslides, and maximising the ecological value of the fog nets. When speaking to the Lomas conservation group Asociación Ecológica Lomas de Primavera, they supported this possibility and were keen to form a formal alliance with the fog catchers. Regarding sanitation, Social Enterprise X-Runner have installed over 700 dry toilets in the San Juan de Miraflores district. Their mission to provide non-water-based sanitation to people with land titles but no access to the network. Easy to install dry toilets are leased to families who pay a monthly fee for their weekly waste connection. Their approach focuses on fostering capacity and knowledge building within the community through regular engagement and hygiene education. We also found future potential for a full circular economy and environmental regulation by selling the feces compost for agricultural purposes. This could help communities escape the poverty risk trap, but requires regulation from the Ministry of Health. Problematically, the capacity for project growth is limited in several ways. To drive community adoption and economies of scale, the project has to be highly localised. The taboo of promoting dry toilets to your neighbours and the monthly cost also restricts adoption by whole communities, hindering the potential to disrupt hygiene traps as pit latrines remain in the community. Finally, dry toilets are not recognised at higher institutional levels, such as in the municipalities and ministries of environment and health, resulting in a significant lack of funding and over-reliance on international donors. Additionally, for both projects, there is a fear from communities that project involvement could prevent them from getting access to water and sanitation through the schemas, which is being further perpetuated by complex and unclear schema management processes. Therefore, currently both projects remain isolated pockets of innovation with no overarching strategy, resulting in little engagement and trust from both communities and municipalities. A lack of integration is impacting on the ability to achieve transformative change and wider environmental justice. Therefore, we moved our research away from a focus on decentralised projects, despite often being promoted in Global South cities, to exploring the need for an integrated whole city perspective. The citywide environmental injustices identified through our research demonstrated the importance of a holistic plan, which cross-cuts temporal and spatial scales. Given that the schemas are the framework for water and sanitation access in the periphery, we wanted to analyse how projects could develop in this context. The eco-sanitation pilot led by CEDAPAL and AgriEcoSan in the Santa Rosa district is showing a shift towards this approach. Here, water and sanitation provision is integrated into one ecologically orientated, water-saving project with long-term ambitions that recognise the needs of water-stressed environment and marginalised citizens who can't get a schema connection. This has great potential for wider transformative change across the city and addressing our 4 risk traps. In particular, eco-sanitation in coordination with CEDAPAL addresses the poverty risk trap, as it provides water from nearby schemas and charges network prices. Water savings through dry sanitation also mean dramatically reduced water purchasing costs. However, participation and capacity building need to be improved by SENCA and UNDP. As seen in Chosica, lack of governance in an earlier AgriEcoSan pilot led to the network being overtaken by a private actor, over-extracting poor quality groundwater for the community, damaging the environmental and distributional benefits of eco-sanitation. The current sanitation vision also presents eco-sanitation as a temporary and peripheral solution, raising the cost of the project as it is not integrated into the schema's planning.
Que son las que nos van a, el agua llegará por 15 años, por esa razón.
Through analysing these water and sanitation projects, we propose 3 key strategies to achieve transformative change and minimise risk in Lima. The first strategy is the adoption of a new water culture, which is relevant for the entire city of Lima, where water is not only scarce but also mismanaged, resulting in maldistribution.
Es así que no hay cultura del agua. Salgo y lavo mi carro con el agua potable. Las constructoras utilizan el agua potable.
This strategy has a twofold purpose of A, limiting consumption, and B, promoting equitable distribution. To achieve this, we propose targeted education of the population through a municipal plan with the support of SENCA to encourage water saving and raise awareness about efficiency within companies, industries, schools, and institutions. The role of local municipalities is critical to ensure behavioural change at the household level. New regulation by the Ministry of Housing, Construction and Sanitation is needed to promote water saving through water meters and retrofitting technologies. Their use at the household level needs encouragement through demand-side management incentives, such as financial subsidies, that can be orchestrated by the Ministry of Finance and relayed locally by CEDAPAL and each municipality. We recommend a new tariff model from CEDAPAL and SUNAS, keeping the social tariff low while penalising overconsumption through an exponentially increasing tariff for other domestic and commercial uses. Furthermore, higher tariff could be used to discourage pollution from industrial uses, and the Ministry of Finance and CEDAPAL should collaborate with these industries for investments in grey water reuse. Strategy 2. As disparities in water and sanitation services between the centre and the periphery will not be wholly solved in the near future, our second recommendation proposes the recognition and development of the periphery. First, the Ministry of Housing, Construction and Sanitation, as well as local municipalities, need to recognise the periphery as an area which is home to a large part of the population facing challenges due to insufficient service coverage. This recognition would be the first step towards achieving better regulation of water and sanitation services for communities which are not yet connected to CEDAPAL's network. We recommend that SUNAS regulates the quality and price of water delivered by private tanks, ensuring people receive safe drinking water at a fair price. Furthermore, alternative methods for water and sanitation services could be developed and incorporated into city planning. As schemas can act as catalysts for social inclusion, we recommend integrating currently peripheral alternatives within the model of schemas as a long-term holistic solution. This will reduce water consumption and the costs associated with implementing isolated projects. Also, building on the successes of current initiatives ensures that transformative change is incremental. SENCA and the local municipalities should play a role in educating communities on the different solutions available and facilitate participation in decision-making. This need to improve communication and recognise alternatives was reiterated by members of the 80 households in Villa Lourdes Ecologico who won't receive a schema sewage connection. All this requires co-financing at different levels from SUNAS as well as CEDAPAL, which could use fundings from the payment mechanism for environmental services. Municipalities, in turn, could foster community participation to ensure the success of these alternatives. Finally, research and development investments are proposed for local universities to allow research into expanding the potential of these alternatives in the Lima context specifically. Our third strategy is to strengthen the water governance at all scales. We should move towards a more democratic and transparent water governance, encompassing methods of social control as well as regulation of private actors extracting, using, and selling water. In terms of transparency, the communication gap between the institutions, municipality, and communities must be reduced, and the production of knowledge and the socialization of information across all levels should be promoted. In order to achieve this, there are currently community assemblies that can liaise between people and local government to ensure good flow of information on the timing and details of water and sanitation projects. In addition, companies and businesses should be involved in this strategy. Compliance and environmental audits are information systems designed to monitor whether these organisations are meeting the legal and environmental regulations. This strategy will involve the disclosure and transparency of their operations to ensure accountability to the population. This method of social control will include the participation of ANA to oversee actions by private companies, such as meters that measure the quantities of groundwater extracted. These measures clarify the responsibility of the different actors and support Recommendation 1, which looks to create more equitable water consumption and distribution. Finally, stronger governance means that the community, in particular those who currently lack adequate water and sanitation services, will take part in the decision-making process and monitoring. This more democratic process will facilitate better recognition of those living in the periphery, parity of their participation, and accountability from decision makers, whilst building a stronger relationship between the different actors. Whilst each recommendation may be more relevant to different parts of the city, because the current water and sanitation reality is reproducing socio-environmental injustices and exacerbating risks across the whole of Lima, we believe that all three recommendations are necessary and equally important for achieving transformative change. The potential of unconventional approaches can be harnessed to reduce risks in the periphery if they are recognised and developed, but this must occur together with new democratic governance mechanisms and progressive policies by actors at multiple scales that target the wider city and place safe and affordable water for all at their core.